Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So it's that time again that we get ready for another 3 to 4 months of absolutely killing everything that we see in maps and whatnot over and over again. Now, one thing with the 3.22 League patch notes that came out this morning, there's not a great amount of, well, if anything, not really a meta shift up, which is both good and a bad thing. Now, we do have the inclusion of a number of new support gems, which throughout the league we'll get to in probably theorycraft before we get to league. And there are a bunch of changes to the ascendancies, be it a little confusing to read through with all the ruthless inclusions in the patch notes. But aside from all of that, I'm still genuinely excited for the new league. And so this list is simply going to be a list of 5 good league starters and I guess safer league starters that you can choose to have a good time at the start of the league and get through the campaign quickly. Now, some people might be going, hey, can these do Ubers? If you got to ask that question with a league starter build, then you ain't going to be doing Ubers. Anyway, let's get into the video and start rattling through the list. Okay, so the first build off the cab here is one that's been in basically every curation that I've put out in the last however many leagues because the meta has never shifted enough to shift this build out. But it's the RF Jugg from Pohx. Now, he actually has a whole website for this build, including, I think this league he's looking at the Templar or the Inquisitor Jugg all over again, and he's been leveling that up on stream. Now, he's got a full league start guide, basically a full explanation of the Act 1 through to 10 playthrough, and fundamentally it tells you everything about the build that you need to know. Now, one of the things, if you're looking at RF, you haven't played RF before, or you're a new player to the game, basically what RF is you overcap your fire resistance, you build a ton of regeneration, and then you run Righteous Fire, which burns at a percentage of your health and whatnot, and then it expands in damage based on your burning damage and whatever. Usually you run Fire Trap with it as well, and basically you just walk through the game and light shit on fire and everything dies and you have a good time. It's super consistent, super tanky, and just an overall really easy build for especially a newer player to get into. Anyway, if you decide you want to delve with it, I'll put a link in the description to my 6000 HP regeneration version of the build from a few leagues ago, which is still viable because, again, the meta hasn't changed. And so, yeah, this would be my first recommendation for a great league starter build to get you going. Okay, so the next build that we've got here is actually one that I was working on last night and put up a leveling guide up for. So this one's been around for the last couple of leagues, in particular with Sanctum, and was actually really strong with an item called the Sandstorm Visage, which basically allowed you to max out your crit based on just the crit on your wand, essentially. Now, this is the Hexblast miner, so basically it is a mine character, so you've got to basically throw your mines out in front of you. I usually map to Q and W, and then just walk around blasting the crap out of everything. Now, in the guide that I've put up yesterday, it's talking about how to level up the Sabotuer. It does have an endgame tree, and then basically gets you all the way through the acts, telling you what you need to equip, how to play the build, and everything you need to do. I.e. Act 4 is generally when you're going to start playing Hexblast mines. And as far as uniques and things like that, the only real unique you need initially is Profane Proxy, which is just a pretty straightforward ring to get, probably in the first few days of League. Now, if you don't get that initially, you can just use Blasphemy and it'll work just fine for the time being. Now, this build's really, really good at early damage, really, really good at getting the maps. I pretty much walked into T5 maps with no gear, was able to go and body bosses with no issues whatsoever. That being said, I did that without any ascendant. I think I had my first 2 labs completed. I just did everything I possibly could to play the game badly, and it still exceeded my expectations. The other thing that you might be able to consider is this might also work with Locust support mines now. Locust mine support, which is a new mine support in the game, and potentially there's some options where you could switch some things out later down the track and play with it. As far as bossing, this does really great damage endgame wise, and it really ranges from like the 5 million DPS mark all the way up to the 100 million DPS mark, depending on your proclivity for gearing it and or going mirror tier. Now, I'll be playing this on League Start myself. Now, if you're looking for a Trickster variation, I'll put a link in the description as well to Captain Lance's build from, I think, last league, or the league before in Sanctum. It'll still be good. There's no change to the meta. There was a slight nerf to the Sabotuer Ascendancy, but that's about it. But it still should be extremely playable and work really well. And in looking at that, I think mine characters are making their way back because the meta hasn't shifted and now we're moving back to mines. This is a really good build to sort of progress forwards with. So all the links to the videos and everything you need will be in the description below to get you started. So for the third build we've got here, funnily enough, this is another one of mine. And if you follow my channel, you'll know that I was a huge fan of Shield Crush Jugg at the start of last league. And I used this to league start and absolutely clap everything in the game that I could. Now, in particular, I had a proclivity to smash Crystal Kings with this build, but if you wanted to get this to Uber level, it can be pushed so far as you can do the 50 to 70 million DPS range and just clap Ubers. Now, from a league start scenario, I provided a leveling tree from initial league start, how to basically forward it through the axe, how to power level it up, how to get it through to the end game. Now, it is a little slower than, for example, Boneshatter, but where it makes up in being a little slower, it's incredibly powerful. In particular, some of the items that it'll need in the first 2 days will be Emperor's Vigilance and Seething Fury and Replica Dream Feather, but none of these were unrealistic to get within the first 1.5 days of League. Most people that played this build, the feedback was generally positive across the board because it was so damn tanky. Now, also included in the list of videos that I'll have in the description will be the Day 1 build diary with the Day 1 build tree, the build diary 2 from the next, I think it was Day 3 or so, where it got to 4 million DPS, then the 7 million DPS version after week 1, and then by the time I got it to max, it was 19 to 34 million DPS, and that was within like the first week and a half of League, which is quite bloody powerful. So yeah, if you're looking for a really powerful melee-based character, really safe to play, really easy to play, unaffected by the patch notes in pretty much most general ways, then the Shield Crush Jugg is definitely worth having a look at. It was also really good in Delve. Got me down to about, I think, 500 to 600 depth roundabouts, and with the ability to push it further if you were to add a Mage Blood or a Progenesis to it. Actually, it would just reach God mode with a Progenesis on it. Anyway, this would be build number 3 that I'd recommend for league starting for this league. Okay, so the next one is Reign of Arrows Raider and also Reign of Arrows Champion, which is put together by Fuzzy Duckzy. Now, the reason why I looked at this one is super cheap skill. Nobody's really playing Reign of Arrows except for Fuzzy Duckzy. And he's also had a lot of positive feedback on the video, which is always good to see. So a lot of people who have played this can confirm that this is actually a really good build and really good at league start and scales out really well later in the game. Now, that being said, looking at his POB, he's got tons of details in here, fully fleshed out notes section. He's also got multiple videos to the point where he's put an entire playlist together for the Raider build. So if you were looking for a build with heavily developed resources, this is it. And I'm sure that if you were to contact him with queries and whatnot, he'd be also in, just like every other creator's mode of fielding queries for the 3.22 league and servicing his builds as well as everybody else would be as well at this time. So yeah, number 4 on this list is going to be the Reign of Arrows Raider. Okay, so the last build on this list is no doubt Boneshatter. Like, we can't have a curation list anymore without the goddamn Bone Zone build. So this is from Binu's Gaming, this one in particular, and one of the reasons why this one stuck out is, number 1, it's a really good guide. It's extensive as extensive gets, explains everything you need to know, and is really, really beginner friendly. And so, yeah, they basically start out with a build-up of like where you need to be and POBB, the starter sort of setup, and then all the way through to the end game. And it's using relatively moderate gear as well to achieve a really good outcome, which is pretty good. They've also got a leveling guide as well, which is a separate video, and I'll link both videos down below. And I just really like the style of the way that they presented the age-old Bone Zone build. Now, one of the other advantages of playing this particular build is now, because we have the trauma support gem, there's every possibility that you'll be able to take this build as a template and elaborate this out to any other strike skill, and that might be something worth having a look at for anyone who wants to challenge themselves this league. But overall, this was just a really, really solid build, league on league. It hasn't been touched by the patch notes. pretty much no skill has been touched by the patch notes. So again, just a really good recommendation to get you started for the league. It scales really well, really good AoE at endgame, just an overall solid tanky build. And if you want to go down and play it in Delve and whatnot, you can absolutely do that because it can handle pretty much anything that you throw at it. And it scales really well in the early days of League. Basically just RF with an axe, basically. Anyway, that's the 5th build on this League starter list. Okay, so hopefully this list gives you some good ideas to get started for the league. Unfortunately, there's not a great deal of meta shakeup with the new patch notes, but that just means that things that have worked a league on league will continue to work and will probably be better because we haven't even seen the new drops, and there's also the tattoo system for the skill tree now, which could aberrantly change builds in many, many ways. And also the new support gems will give way to new builds too. Anyway, if you like this video, like and sub to the channel. Also, follow me on the Twitch, which will be linked down in the description below and the pinned comment. Also, don't forget to follow the Twitter. I'm trying to get that one going. But yeah, anyway, there'll be a link down below for that. And don't forget to join the Discord if you want to shoot the shit with a bunch of other filthy exiles that like delving. But yeah, until next time, have fun, and hopefully you do well on your quest to find a good build for 3.22. Anyway, stay safe, and bye.